My name is Gary McCallagher. I'm the SIG chair for the NSCA High School Strength and Conditioning Special Interest Group. What I'm doing is I am re-recording the presentation that I gave on Thursday at the NSCA conference in Orlando, because we tried to Zoom it. Some of our members were able to Zoom in, but the connection was really poor. So it kept cutting out, and while I did record it, it's not fun to watch. So I thought I would do a quick down and dirty presentation for those that would be interested that weren't able to attend, just to kind of go over things a little bit for you. Because really my intent in doing this is to spur more collaboration. And I think the more information that we can share out to members of the SIG, whether through the formal membership that's registered through the NSCA or through the members on Facebook. I mean, we have over 3,000 members on Facebook. My hope is that we can get more people involved. One thing that I really talked about in the meeting, the face-to-face meeting, is looking for more people to get involved, to do more proactive things. You know, one thing that I really loved about the interview I did with Brian Mann is that he went off on like a 5-minute mini rant at the end about how the NSCA is really a volunteer organization, you know, and it's only going to be as good as we make it. You know, there are some full-time people, obviously, that work for the NSCA, and they put on things like the conference, and it was an excellent event. I mean, I was super impressed with what occurred, considering that we just came off of a huge COVID layoff. But really, we're only going to do stuff or accomplish things that we drive. So I wanted to record this because I wanted, you know, while we had 20 to 30 people in the meeting, obviously there's more stakeholders in that. So let me get into it. Our first here, this was our agenda. This is members of the Executive Council. I will say that we are going to be looking for some new members on the council. Frankly, we need some members that want to get some stuff done, be active in our meetings, collaborate, correspond, have new ideas, and take initiatives. Now, with that said, I don't think that you need to be a formal member of the Executive Council to get things done. You know, part of my, this is kind of anecdotal, but part of my doctoral research was on the development of leadership and cohesion in team sports through strength and conditioning. And one of the things that came out of that research that I also documented, that was for successful organizations to be successful, up to 60 to 80% of the members of that organization take on an active leadership role. And it doesn't have to be a big leadership role, like you don't have to run meetings, but do something, you know, communicate, coordinate, collaborate. It's not hard. So looking for some people to formally apply to the SIG Executive Council when that window opens. I'm not terribly sure when that opens. It's at the end, it's in like early fall. But also people that are informally willing to help out. I know that, like, for example, there's a guy who is really active on the Facebook page. His name's Alan, and he posts job opportunities. Well, you know, what he is doing for our membership is a great service, because he's posting jobs. I mean, they're great jobs. I mean, I look at these jobs and I'm like, man, maybe I'll apply for that job. But you know, they're great jobs, and he's doing that because he cares about the people that are involved in this industry, and he wants to see it improve. So it doesn't need to be a formal role. It can be informal. Here's our purpose statement. Allow SIG members to discuss the professional concerns, interests, and ideas, and share solutions to common problems. I think the solutions to the common problems is the big thing. For those that don't know me, I'm an administrator. I'm an athletic director, been an AD for 15 years. I generally don't let people complain about things unless they bring solutions to the table. And I think that's really important. So, we had a great meeting at the NSCA conference in Orlando, and people that brought up concerns also had possible solutions, and they were proactively looking to help solve the problem. And we're volunteers, and we don't always have the answers, but sometimes it just helps to talk about it. So this is why we exist, and our group is getting very strong and we're growing. So our activities and accomplishments for this year, I mean, just like everybody else, this was a bit of a crazy year. This was my first year as the SIG chair. I really didn't start doing this stuff until probably November. Our big product has been a textbook that we've been working on. I've been working on for about 2 years, but I know that there's stakeholders in our SIG that have been working on it for a lot longer. I think 3 years, and it's going to be released in fall of 2021. It's actually called the NSCA Guide to High School Strength and Conditioning, and it's going to be used as a textbook for undergraduate majors, but also as a guide for those that are in the profession, just as a resource. And we had many of the authors in attendance, which was phenomenal. And one thing that we want to do, the SIG leadership, is try to sponsor, I don't think it would be a conference, but like a symposium or a clinic that would feature the authors and give them an opportunity to talk about their chapters more in depth for those that are interested. And we're looking at, we talked to NSCA about this, Eric McMahon, who was in our meeting. And I talked to Roger Earl about it, who was at the conference. He was the lead person from Human Kinetics that worked with us on the project. So really excited. It's like an actual textbook, and I think we're all really proud to be a part of this, and more excited about the impact that it could have on the profession. We also did the 2021 Coaches Conference virtually. We had about 86 attendees, which was really cool. And hopefully some of you that are watching us were on that. And we were able to facilitate some good dialogue, albeit via Zoom. But I thought it was a very successful endeavor. And we had some roundtable topics discussed there. We've done a lot of grassroots conversations with national scholastic organizations. When you're looking at scholastic strength and conditioning at the high school strength and conditioning, middle school strength and conditioning, you need to involve key decision makers in that process. And at the school level, your key decision makers that would kind of go along with this initiative would be athletic directors, principals, superintendents, school board members. So two of the initiatives that we've done is we've attended the National Interscholastic Athletic Association, the national conference, had a lot of good dialogue with ADs that attended the conference about the value of strength and conditioning, and even followed up with many of them afterwards on ways that they can get a position with their programs. Because it's not a matter of, usually it's not a matter of why with principals or ADs. It's a matter of how. Because if you're familiar with the way schools work, it's a very large bureaucracy. And it's like that for a lot of reasons, because in our meeting we talked about FAPE, free and appropriate education, and there's a lot of governmental constraints on what education needs to look like, because ultimately it's a right granted by our government, but also it's public money, it's taxpayer money. So there's a lot of hoops to jump through, a lot of red tape, and you're not going to get around it, or you're not going to get around the hoops, but there's a way to navigate things. And I think that's part of my strength. If people want to reach out to me directly, I can talk to you about training methodology. I can talk to you about program design. I can talk to you about multi-sport training. I can talk to you about Olympic lifting, but my real strength is having discussions with you about how you can have discussions with your decision makers about how you can formulate a position within your constraints, and I think that's really important because you need to know where the revenue, or not the revenue, but the funding streams come from. We've had some conversations with the LTAD SIG. Sam and I did a chat, LTAD chat with them, trying to build connections there because I think in a big way our philosophies are aligned, especially with the connection to education-based athletics, and really promoting overall health and wellness to all students. And then also, we named the 2021 High School Coach of the Year, Coach Melendrez, who is also a SIG member. And Sam's the man. And I know he's going to get mad that I say that, but he's a great guy to work with. And you can just tell he runs a knockout program at his school. So input from SIG members, we have a list of things that the SIG members have indicated to us. I mean, it's always consistent. People will talk about, full-time position, which, I think is obvious that needs to be consistent across schools. But it's also important to recognize that each school district in the United States is sovereign. So it's really going to take a combination of a grassroots approach at the district level, but then also a more of a 30,000-foot view approach, a strategic approach with various organizations like the athletic directors or the principals or Shape America or the NSCA to develop the awareness of the need and the fact that we can provide the service to kids. But other areas that SIG members have indicated that they're looking for, individual relative to aspects of specific training. We did a survey in December, and I believe the biggest one was how to train multi-sport athletes, which is a problem I have at my school. How to do that best way possible, getting coach buy-in, especially in season, getting athlete buy-in, especially when you do multiple sports. Olympic style weightlifting was a big one. Nutrition was a big one too, but there's a lot, and that was just a sample of the ones that people reached out about. And what we're starting to do, we've done this twice, is interviews with industry professionals, not necessarily high school coaches, but people that are just well-known industry professionals, about key points that we can take away and apply to high school training. So we did one with Coach Leo Totten, who is very well known, about how to implement Olympic weightlifting at the high school level. We did one recently with Brian Mann about how to implement EBT at the high school level. And we're going to keep doing those things because, one, I think they're beneficial, but also I really like doing them. I kind of crapped the bed a little bit with Brian Mann because I think I was a little shell shocked. I was so sucked into his presentation because I'm so interested in it that I kind of forgot what I was doing. But I will do better, I promise. One thing that was discussed that I think we got to do a better job of is recognizing coaches that stand out in the profession. I'm not the best at that, but that's one thing that I really want somebody new that we get onto the SIG this year, either formally or informally, to really work on recognizing existing coaches and the outstanding things that they're doing with their kids. And then how do we get this information? I've done surveys on the Facebook page, a lot of direct contact via email. A lot of the times, the biggest impact I've made is having individual conversations with coaches that get my email off of the NSCA website. And it's, a lot of it pertains to framework of their positions. And they'll say, well, how can I do this? Like there's money. My principal wants to know what my position is going to look like, time frame, construct, all those things. Like how can you help me guide me through this process? And I have 4 or 5 phone calls or Zoom calls, up for Zoom, and we bang it out. And I think it works out really well. Formal or informal conversations at NSCA events. I had a lot of great conversations at the conference this past week at Orlando. I had so many good conversations with people. I would get back to the room and my wife was like, what are we going to do? And I was so emotionally drained from getting excited about all the conversations that I was having about strength and conditioning or high school or whatever. I kind of just needed to chill. She wasn't happy about it. But I just really enjoy interacting with everyone. And then engagement on the Facebook group. And the Facebook group's tough because I'm not really social media savvy. It's not a big part of my life. And I don't post a lot on it, but again, looking for some new people, that's an area of need, kind of like marketing, right? Social media engagement, to be a little bit more savvy with what that looks like and effective. But we do get some dialogue on that page. I get people to reach out to me directly as well, and other members of the SIG. So our priorities, I think in speaking with our executive council, this is a list of things that we came up with. The first one is maximizing connection to the SIG members. Is it going to be through social media, or is it going to be through another platform? The question is, I know other platforms exist, but what makes something like Facebook or social media so effective is that it hits people where they're at. And I think that's really important from a marketing perspective. Like if I was teaching marketing, I would say that's a really important facet. And a lot of people are on social media or Facebook, so especially our demographic. I don't think young people are on Facebook. That's not cool, but old people are. So where else can we hit people to collaborate and engage professionally where they're already at? Some people brought up, well, having like a forum on the NSCA website, but how likely is it that a person's going to go log into the NSCA website and just like arbitrarily browse? I don't know how likely that is. I think it's probably more likely to hit them on a social media platform that they're already using. It's just maybe how do we do it better? Monthly content. This would be like those videos or interviews that we did with Coach Totten and Dr. Mann, with various topics that you are interested in. And then ultimately, we'd like to have a library of content, and then we can add to it and adjust it. But then we have a library of content from professionals that people can use. Highlight and celebrations. Not my strength, but we're looking for somebody to take on that role because it's important, and I think it's going to be motivating to other coaches that are new to see what long tenured coaches have been able to accomplish. Eric McMahon was in our meeting, and he talked about the revamp of NSCA Strength of America designation. It's in its very early stages, and it's not really out there, but it's basically going to refine standards-based designation to promote visibility, recognition, and awareness for high school coaches. And he's really excited about it. I'm excited about it, and I think we'll learn more about the revamp later in 2021. And the final priority is to connect and collaborate with other SIGs, LTAD or specific sports. And we talked about this. We had a SIG leaders meeting the morning before the high school meeting. And that was something that was on everybody's agenda, is how do we collaborate? The word silo gets thrown around a lot in education, and it was used in that meeting as well. How we kind of silo ourselves. And I think high school especially, we will benefit from collaborating with other SIGs. Like I talked to the SIG chair from soccer. Well, who else better to get soccer information about how to train middle school and scholastic athletes better, soccer athletes, than the soccer chair. So, he's willing to do a chat with us on just down and dirty things that we can do with soccer players. Soccer players can be very unique with their training, especially soccer coaches. Very hesitant to adapt training, especially during the in-season. So, ways that we can have conversations with those coaches or important language we can use to really get those coaches' interest. So there are priorities. Other priorities that came out of that SIG leadership meeting. Overall, the NSCA is looking to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want to increase the CEU offerings. One thing that I think is really interesting that came out of that meeting that we can apply to our SIG is to strategically plan proposed CEU tracks. Very much like when you were an undergrad, your department had a curriculum, a scope and sequence that you had to follow to get your degree. Now, this wouldn't be mandatory, but we could say if you are a scholastic or a high school strength coach track, or that's what you're interested in, maybe we can outline a program of CEUs over the next 3 years for you to take to ultimately enhance your practice. So it wouldn't just be so arbitrary. And I know a lot of people like their last minute about their CEUs and they'll wait to the last year, like, oh crap, I got to do this. But, that happens. But if you want to be more proactive, maybe we can help guide you. And I think that was a really neat thing that came out of that meeting. And then another thing, and then this is really important to me as well, is mentoring future leaders. And a lot of it has to do with just assuming leadership roles, not relying upon one person in the SIG to be a leader. Again, that's 60 to 80% of the membership of the organization, assuming some type of role in bettering the organization, either formally or informally. Then we had some open discussion. I took down some broad-based notes. So we talked about connection and correspondence that's simple and easily replicated. And I will say, I was in a bunch of other SIG meetings and the same topic came up. Weightlifting, LTAD, and there isn't a clear-cut answer to this. There's always going to be a difference between the NSCA members that are actually formally a part of the SIG, which is something you can sign up for on your NSCA personal page, and being a part of the Facebook page. The Facebook page does not mean that you are formally an NSCA member of the SIG. Does that matter? I don't know if it matters, to be honest with you. If it's just as simple as going on to your NSCA information, personal information, and clicking on what special interest groups you want to be a part of. Of course, you can be a part of the Facebook page and not be a member of the NSCA, which is fine. As far as I'm concerned, the point of this endeavor is to promote strength and conditioning at the scholastic level. I don't care. I mean, obviously, I think it's good if you're an NSCA member, and I think that's wise from a professional standpoint, but also I don't want to restrict access to information that's going to help kids just because you're not a member of the SIG formally. We had somebody from the NSCA, and I don't remember her name, but she's going to do a chat with us about how strength and conditioning coaches that have a bachelor's in exercise science can basically find a career pathway to teach health and physical education at the high school level through like a 1-year certification course that pretty much each state has, and she has access to that information on how to do that. Because a lot of times that's a barrier. It's a barrier for a lot of people that want to get involved in strength and conditioning if they require a health and physical education certification. So basically, she's saying there's 1-year programs out there that each state has approved that can help you get to where you want to be. And then also, same representative from the NSCA discussed ERP programs where we can secure strength and conditioning interns through approved university programs that have to do some type of field experience, which could be very valuable. And making those connections with your local schools to get some more help, and then also not just get some more help, but to also expose undergraduate students to the field. Because if you're working in scholastic strength and conditioning, it is a very viable alternative to the very common, I want to go work with D1 athletes, or I want to go be a professional strength and conditioning coach, because we know there's a lot of potential problems with having to bounce around a lot if you go to the collegiate level, or the realistic component of just getting in there, especially if you don't have a lot of athletic experience already coming out of undergrad, and just the various parameters that people, or obstacles that people encounter trying to get those jobs. So those are the big points that we discussed. I hope people watch this, and I hope this helps somebody. And if you ever have any questions about anything related to scholastic high school strength and conditioning, how to get it in your school, how to work within certain parameters that you're facing, how to have conversations with stakeholders, I'll be happy to help. So don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much for watching.